ready? Okay, Jim. Taneytown Planning and Zoning Commission, please come to order. Would you stand for the pledge to the flag, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to our meeting this evening. Let the records reflect the members that are present, and Chris and Jay are remote, but they are with us this evening. Commission members should have received the draft minutes of July 31st, 2023. Is there any additions or corrections to those minutes?
Just two quick questions.
Okay.
Okay, first one, we have the updated version that was on our desk. I didn't get a chance to compare what the changes were.
The changes is the date at the bottom.
Okay.
Second page, date, just the date.
Remember last month, I missed a month? And that's the way it was recorded.
Gotcha. Yep, okay. Second question, we talked, and maybe it's should be under old business or something, but do we have plans for backfill in the other seat?
Excuse me?
Plans for backfill in the other seat?
I would imagine the mayor is working on that. Does anybody from the staff have comments?
The mayor is working on it. I believe there's some candidates, but it's hopeful that we get this done soon. Sure.
Okay. But I didn't see any call for applications or anything like that. I was just.
Well, I'll check into it more and I'll send out an email as soon as I hear back from the mayor.
Cool, appreciate it.
Sure.
But any questions I had other than that?
Okay, then I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Make a motion.
Motion by Bill.
Second.
Second by Bradley. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Got you, Chris. Thank you. Unanimous. Delegates and action items for tonight. Memorial Park expansion. Dan, you want to start us off on this? And this is a presentation only for the preliminary, right?
It's presentation only for preliminary, yes.
Okay.
All right, good evening, how are you?
Good evening.
So the concept site plan, as you know, was presented at the March 27th meeting. You all saw the beautiful color renderings. You got the hard copy of the plans themselves. You approved the concept plan at the April 24th meeting. You received copies of the preliminary site plan. Nothing has changed on those. We have submitted or Arrow Consulting has submitted the preliminary site plan to the county, so they are in the midst of reviewing, and we've received some comment letters back already. The site plan was also presented to State Highway for their review, and we received a comment letter back from them as well. So we are just officially presenting it to you this evening, but we're going to wait for approval or to request approval from you until we get all of the county comments and review letters back and address those internally. And then once all of those have been addressed, then Arrow will produce the final site plan and submit that to the county for review as well. And then that'll be presented to you. And again, we'll follow the same format. We'll wait until we get all of the county reviews and approvals before we come back to you to request approval for that final site plan. So.
Okay, does there seem to be any type of hang-ups at this point that we should be aware of?
Not at this point. I mean, it's definitely following a preliminary site plan, so we're getting some preliminary comment and review letters. There are several more agencies that have to respond back to us or respond back to Arrow, so we're waiting.
All right. Comments?
I have a few questions, if you don't mind. We probably covered them when we talked the concept, but just see if there's any update or. You know, we talked about the exit onto Frederick Street. So
Correct.
Is the state like balking at that? Or
No,
oh, okay.
no.
I didn't see the comment letter
Yeah.
in here. That's what I was looking for.
Right. No, they just submitted it today to us. We just got a copy of their comment letter today.
Okay.
And their concerns were basically that we meet the site distance requirement. So coming out of the park, and I believe for 30 miles an hour, which it is, from the left turn from the park road, it's 335 feet, and or making a right turn, it's 290, I believe.
Yeah, I was, coming out to the left is what seemed like the
right.
strain is there, yeah.
Right, yeah, so we should hopefully be able to make those site distance requirements, and then, of course, one of the conditions for that was to put in the sidewalk from the sidewalk at St. Joseph's down to, which we're fine with doing, and that makes for continuity and being able to walk to the park, obviously, to and from, so.
Yeah, so I saw that sidewalk there, and then all the way down Park Avenue, and then all the way around the walkway around the fields. So that's all going to be concrete?
Yes,
That's a lot of concrete.
it is. The contractor's probably gonna be happy,
Yeah.
whomever receives that bid
time.
award.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So on the Park Road, I think we said it's going to be two-way traffic, right, going from Frederick Street in, so it's two-way traffic.
Correct.
And is there I don't know the correct term, it's not a speed bump, this.
A table, speed table.
Speed
right.
table, so that's still
Yes.
in the works that we're in
Correct.
there.
We will have, a couple of those, for sure.
So how about the road is not on your plans there, but, as you go past the park and then you're heading out past the football field, is there going to be improvements to that road out for the exit out to Emmitsburg Road?
It's been discussed, because that road's seen a lot of wear and tear, and, we will need to asphalt the road that's currently gravel there, that's runs
Around the pond
behind.
and everything?
Behind the pond and baseball field one with the grandstand. So, we will be. So we'll look into the cost of extending that asphalt from the new section then on out to 140.
Yeah, I think that'll help with the traffic a lot if you have a second good way to get out.
Yeah.
So,
Dan, if I can interrupt you just for a second, while we're on the road, is that going to be closed off during the week when there's no activities, so people aren't using that for a shortcut?
So we had initially discussed where the road curves around the grandstand behind Field 1. And then it goes up where currently the Public Works Maintenance Shop is and everything. Right there, the grandstand, closing that off with a gate, but there would be some bollards there, some kind of mechanism so that pedestrians and cyclists and such can go through. Maybe, we discussed for like bulk trash day, so it'd be easy in and easy out doing the one way as we've done for years, to have the gate or the obstruction or whatever open so that people could pass through on that day. But that's one occasion, and it's monitored and such, but.
But not the main Park Road and out past, I don't know what they call it, out past the football field there, but they're not going to be closed, right? Is that what you were talking about?
Not that one, not that side,
Yeah.
no.
Okay, my concern is between 3:30 and 5, 6 o'clock at night, instead of going to the square, everybody's going to use that for a shortcut.
And I think that the speed tables and then not being able to get out, on that where it's one way by the war
Yes.
memorial, right? They'll have to come, if they're going to try to take that park access road off of 194, they're going to be going over speed tables. Then I'm not quite sure if we had discussed a stop sign there or not, but regardless, then they'll have to turn left and go back there. When we asphalt that, we'll be putting speed tables on that as well.
Okay.
And then going up Park Road to get onto 140. Frankly, if they try that, they're gonna find out it's gonna be faster just to go through the square. Yeah.
Maybe we can put a toll booth on that road.
Pardon me?
Put a toll booth on the road.
Right, there we go. I'll take it. That's generated park revenue. I can use that. Yeah.
Yeah, Yeah, so so on the fields herself, I saw the lights for the stadium lighting, so where you have the three fields together, you had lights that, so like the center field had four sets of
Shared.
lights on them, right?
Correct.
And then the other two basically had two sets of lights on, and then the other multi-purpose field, I think, only had two sets of lights. So that two sets of lights, is that enough to like have a night game, or is it just like a night
Yes.
practice? I mean,
Right, no, the lighting will be adequate for evening practice games, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
okay. So I guess the only other question I have is, so we have all the lights around the parking lot and everything, so they're gonna be on all night, I guess, or?
They are, and we are working with Arrow on reducing, if we can, the number of lights in the parking lots, just because we reviewed that and we thought that perhaps that was a little excessive, as well. Right.
If it's dark, then that's not good, and if it's too light, then you gotta pay for it, so it's
Right,
kinda.
right. Well, and not only that, but I mean, nobody wants to see that, nobody in the surrounding area wants to
Right.
see that huge glow,
Right.
Right.
up in the sky. That's not necessary. Even if the field lights are turned off, you don't need, dozens and dozens of lights in the parking lot to create that kind of glow, because those will be on overnight, obviously, for safety.
Cool.
And security camera footage.
Cool, that's all I had, thanks, I'm looking forward to seeing the end of the
I know
project.
the sports organizations are looking forward to it too.
I bet.
Yeah.
Daryl, what is chapter 154 from the county?
It's a Jim question. No, it's, Jim, you wanna,
Is that in one of the comment letters?
Is she here, back here? I can't see.
He's back there.
Tiffany, she, brought up a couple times in some of the letters, and I had no idea what it. While she's looking that up, does anyone from the floor like to make any questions or comments?
I have a couple of questions, if I can, Mr. Parker.
Okay, go ahead, Chris. Sorry, I didn't see your thumb.
That's all right. I was waiting to make sure that everybody else was done. I didn't want to jump in and jump on top of anyone else. So my understanding, Lorena, now is originally we had talked about cutting off access at the end of the inbound Park Road from 194 to keep people from using it as a cut through. So we're gonna try to monitor and prevent that just through the use of speed tables at this point. We're not going to block that off.
If we're going to put in some kind of blocking gate or, bollards or such, well, it would be a gate and then bollards kind of on the side so that pedestrians could go through. It would be at that curve right behind the grandstand.
Right.
In field
Right,
one.
and we talked about that,
Yes.
I noticed on this plan that it wasn't there, so I didn't know if that had been dropped, or what the idea was. Because people will find it and people will use it. So I do have a couple of other questions. Off-site signage, I assume that there'll be signs directing people to where the fields are, because if you don't know where they are, you won't find them.
Correct, yes.
From the east parking lot over to the west side fields, there's no direct access down to those fields from that parking lot. The sidewalk is shown to go all the way around to the far west side to access those fields, and there's a fairly steep slope between that parking lot and those fields, and also apparently it looks like a drainage ditch. Is there going to be any provision for sidewalks down from that parking lot down to the fields? I'm afraid people will use that slope anyway, and
Yeah. They will. If it's not on the plans, we don't have plans for it, for a sidewalk to access that portion.
People
Right, 'cause
seem to take the path of least resistance.
Correct. They'll
So-
take
Yeah.
the shortest route, no matter what that's traversing through.
yeah. Well, I guess the other concern with that, of course, is if for ADA access,
Correct.
That makes the only ADA access is to go all the way around the fields to get to the other side. And also, I noticed in the presentation, there shows to be bleachers in between the fields, but there's nothing on the plans that seems to indicate any bleachers or fan seating. Is that a part of the plan, or what's your idea there?
Well, I'm debating on whether to have those as mobile units. So since if they're going to be mobile units, then they wouldn't be shown on the plans as permanent fixed structures. And when I mean mobile, I mean bleachers that are not mounted in the ground on a concrete pad or such, so that way, they could be moved as needed by the sports organizations. But that's something that could be considered, in the future. We might start out with mobile, and then decide later, okay, you know what, this is a good position for these bleachers. Let's go ahead and put a concrete pad down and mount them permanently.
Okay, just like I said, just a couple of things that popped out at me looking at the plan. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anyone from the floor have any comments or want to make any statements?
Mr. Chairman, if Chapter 154 is water resource management for
Water
the county.
resource. All right, and you are having restrooms for the staff only, right?
Inside that multipurpose building, correct?
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
indeed.
All
Yeah, that just like the rest of the parks, the general public will be using the porta pots.
All right, thank you. All right, if no other comments, we thank you very much. Thank you. Waiting to,
For your time.
Thanks, Lorena.
next item on the agenda is Mountain Brook, seeking concept site plan. Daryl, you want to lead us off on that?
So Mountain Brook has already done a concept site plan presentation. They're now tonight seeking concept approval, with no major changes having been made since the last revision.
Okay, representatives from Mountain Brook here would like to come to the floor. Mr. Hackett?
Good evening, Marty Hackett, CLSI. We do have the entire team here, and we're here to answer any questions. The presentation last month was very extensive that Mr. Hayne did. So we just asked, if we get concept approval. We know it's the very beginning of the project. We got a long way to go, and look forward to working with the city.
Okay. I guess, Daryl, for the concept approval, they meet all the requirements as far as the adequate public facility ordinance and that at this point, or not?
Well, with it being concept, it's very, very preliminary, but, I have reached out to the agencies for that, but we were just a concept presentation, now we're a concept. This is where the magic starts with the process.
Okay.
So
Jim?
process-wise, the adequate public facilities ordinance kicks in at the preliminary plan level. So once all of the environmental comments are met, we've ensured that the water and sewer specifications and details are met. That's when we run things through the adequate public facilities tests, and we reach out to the fire company, the schools, Parks and Rec, utilities here, police, all that stuff. So that'll be well into the preliminary plan stage. So, we typically don't send letters out asking for the certificates of adequacy until we've gotten the design nailed down a little bit tighter, because sometimes, at the preliminary plan stage, this is where all the real work goes into it. So if we were to, check the adequacy of, say, police protection today, by the time it's ready for approval, that could change. So we usually wait until we're getting fairly close to the approval on the preliminary plan before we reach out to the schools and do all the certifications. But that'll be prior to preliminary plan approval. And then we have the opportunity to do that again at the final site plan stage for each phase. As it comes forward with the record plats and the construction drawings, we can run the adequate facilities test again.
Okay. My point was to make it aware that it was mentioned and that they're aware of it.
Correct. And if we were to take those measures today, we would fall short on water and sewer capacity for the overall project.
Yes.
If it was being built tomorrow. But as you might recall from last month, we're talking about late 2026 for the first phase to start moving any dirt. So we're a few years out from that.
Okay. All right. So maybe I'll just start out with a couple questions. You said last month that the pond was going to stay. How about the original house all the way back at the end? Is that going to be demolished, or is that going to be part of a town? Or what's happening with that?
It's currently gonna be removed.
Removed, okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And the pond, the goal is to have the pond remain. But going through the process, depending on the requirement as far as certifying to if it's gonna have to be up to today's standards, lately they've been dewatering them, only because of thermal pollutions and stuff like that.
Okay. Okay. And I understand we're just talking about the concept plan, but it's a concept, and it's kind of like a dream that you guys want to have. I'd like to see some type of commitment from State Highway and also from, I guess that's FlowServe. Your property stops before you get to 140.
Right.
What guarantee that that road is going to continue on to 140?
I don't think we couldn't make any guarantee to that.
So how can we put 454 homes into a one-way development?
Our plan obviously is the boulevard entrance, widening the area out to sort of go through the process of making it safe to handle that kind of volume. And it's occurred, I mean, the traffic engineer is going to be doing extensive studies on that as we get involved. So I knew, we did talk about that
Yes.
a little bit last month. We will be engaging a traffic engineer, and he's going to be, I'm sure, in front of this board over the next several months heavily. But there, as far as the extension of through the FlowServe property, that's something I don't think anybody can make that guarantee.
So the city will be having those conversations with FlowServe as this progresses. I mean, certainly it's been shown on our comprehensive plan for decades to go across the property. They're, aware of that long-term goal of the city, but we'll be reopening those conversations, assuming the concept is approved.
I just don't want to fall into a situation like O'Brien Street.
And one of the adequate facilities tests that we run later in the preliminary plan stage is traffic. So there will be a traffic study, and that study will consider, the impact of this segment of the bypass, and project with the connection across FlowServe what impact that will have on traffic at the square here, which is really the intersection that I think everybody's most concerned about. So that's another one of those adequate facilities tests that will go through before anything will be built.
We also discussed last month that there's areas that we can access in another location of Maryland Route 194 for emergency, purposes only, just in case there would be an accident at the intersection, the main access we would have that located. That would be probably more in line directly across from the Kraus Mill Road area. We actually have property all the way out to the right of way, so we could have a secondary, and that's all part of the study that we're going to be working through.
Okay. And I guess I'm a little ahead of myself. So that stretch of the bypass, whatever, is that going to be an extension of Antrim Boulevard, or is that going to have a separate name? Have any thoughts been put into that? What the issue I would have is any type of emergency calls off of Antrim Boulevard, where would you send the equipment?
Right.
So think about the name and how that's going to connect in with the state and with the bypass, so it all coincides with that. And same way when we tie into if the schools come in across on the other side of 140, that they all intersect together.
Right.
So that's my concern. This whole thing is the traffic, that many homes in one area with no means of in and out other than off of 194.
I mean, you guys did a great presentation, but we're not, I've lived here for 30-some years. We're still, as I think Jim is alluding to, from Antrim to behind Vapco and all, we're still not addressing that part. We got 400 and some homes over 12-year period, correct me if I'm wrong. That section, you did a great job, but we're still not addressing from Antrim. And it's not part of your deal, but I've lived here. I've lived through the mess that we've never addressed. And I want to make sure that something is done because, you know, I just want to put it on record because we're doing one part, but that's not going to address the 400 over 12 years to get back into town. I mean, I've heard the comment from the last meeting that the trucks can go out onto 140 and come back in that way, so that's not a pinch point down at the intersection. Well, still got the traffic. Then we compound that with the people that are living there. I just want to make sure how I feel about it, you know.
So how far, this is to you, Jim, I guess, how far are we down the road from the city staff approaching FlowServe? I mean, right now, I can't go with approval on a concept plan that's deadlocked. And that's just me speaking as one person here on the commission.
Well, without concept approval, there's no more work that goes into it to try to hash all this out. So that's, the concept is the big, the dream, so to speak. And the preliminary plan is where all the real serious work goes into it to figure all this out. So if there's not approval for the concept, it doesn't make sense for the developer to pursue and put money into trying to figure out the stream crossing or, working with the city on the FlowServe crossing or any of that. So, it's really all part of the process, and for it to move forward, I can't imagine it going anywhere farther if the concept isn't approved. So, and really it's all about the process. If you like the basic idea of it, that's the concept. But if any of those things comes back, the schools don't have capacity, the traffic study, there's not a way to mitigate any deficiencies with the traffic. If those things come back and we can't figure it out, we can't put it to you for approval. But without concept approval, we don't even get to that stage. So, I mean, the traffic is obviously a very valid concern. And, while this, may bring half of the bypass to fruition, assuming we are able to, work through things with FlowServe, right, it doesn't take care of the whole problem. We don't, and the traffic study is going to give some projections on, when these homes are built, what portion are going to come through the square, what proportion are expected to go out towards Emmitsburg, what's going to go towards Frederick, and then the impact of that on, whatever intersections we choose to study. But, so some of that traffic, may be heading right down 194 and not come through the square. But that's going to be something the traffic engineer estimates and projects. So, again, that's all the work that goes in during the preliminary plan. So without concept approval, we just don't get there.
So concept approval doesn't necessarily mean you'll get preliminary or final approval on the project.
No, it just gives them the green light to go to the next stage.
Okay.
And that's where the bulk of the work goes in for us. You know, for us, the final plan is very, very similar to the preliminary plan. So the preliminary plan is going to work out, 85, 90% of the details.
All right. I think I said my piece on the part. Any more from the commission here?
Yeah, sure. I think most of it is just different words than what you said. However, I wanted to make sure my team here understood my position, so I'm going to go through them all. So one of the concerns I had was the street size. I guess you guys would call it a side street size, and what the parking is going to look like. I think we kind of fell down in a couple places around here, and there's just, in my opinion, just not enough street width for emergency services. I'm concerned about the single entry point, which I think we're going to try to address that in the preliminary concept, where you'd have two places to enter or exit for emergency situations. I am not in favor of front-loaded townhouses. I know we had a few of those on the original plan there, and I think I understand why you were laying them out that way, but based on what I've seen, I'm not really in favor of them. I don't think, I just don't like the aesthetics of it. I am concerned about, and it's because I don't know, how your boulevard is going to connect to the other Antrim Boulevard. So I know we got Krause Mill Road, 194, everything's coming together there, but I have no idea what that's going to look like. Is it a big clover leaf there that we've never seen in Taneytown, or is it a bunch of stoplights? So I have a hard time even visualizing what that's going to look like when that goes through. And then my number one concern that Jim mentioned is we really don't have any assurances that the road is going to go all the way through to 140. And so I'm tracking that. That's part of the preliminary workings, but to me, that's really that's almost like a showstopper if that's not worked out before we get to the preliminary plan. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Okay. Graham? Any comments from the floor? Chris, gotcha.
All right, just a couple of things. One, to address the commission members' concerns. And obviously we agree on a lot of that this thing shouldn't go forward if we can't make those things happen. But we have to take that first step. We have to go forward with at least approving the concept in order to be able to drive forward to complete and continue and complete negotiations with FlowServe and to keep our foot in the door for the other portions going around from Antrim, from across Krause Mill Road into Antrim Boulevard. If we don't, like Bill said, 30 years and nothing's happened. Well, part of it is because we keep stopping ourselves at taking that first step. Here we have an opportunity to get a large portion of the bypass completed for us by a developer as part of what they're building. And this can carry a long way to bring the state along to say, can you help us finish this? This was put to the back burner. My understanding was put to the back burner by Taneytown City government some 25 years ago. And so now, in order for us to resurrect it and bring it back, we really have to show a commitment to it. And if we're going to disapprove a concept plan before we even get into those kinds of discussions to bring it forward, that's then we're just showing that we don't want to move forward. So this can be stopped at any point along the line. It comes back through to a preliminary plan approval and then a final plan approval. And if these things that we're talking about and we're looking for aren't met, then it can stop at that point, and we can stop it then. But we have to at least get the ball rolling, and I think we need to approve this, tonight to move this ball forward. Saying yes tonight doesn't mean that we're going to start building 454 houses tomorrow, but it does mean we can start the process towards getting this done. So that's my.
All right.
Just a couple other things. So, just for us up here, so if you look at our comprehensive plan, it's all over there where it says we want to maintain a small town atmosphere. So I think we have to consider if another 400 houses is going to help us have a small town atmosphere. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I guess depends on how we do it. But then the other thing that I've read in the comprehensive plan is that maybe it wasn't in there, but anyway, one of the things that I think we're supposed to do is to identify when these new projects, how they're going to benefit the existing citizens of Taneytown, and how long will that be until they actually benefit them. So I think that's something that we have to consider as we move forward here also.
You're right on both of those, yes.
And I don't disagree about the small town attitude and the small town atmosphere, but in order for us to get to that point, we've got to get the traffic off of Baltimore Street. And the only way that happens is if we move forward with a bypass. And right now, the only way that's going to happen is that we have these kinds of public-private partnerships where we can get this moving and get portions of it built and maybe get state assistance or whatever it takes to move forward with the rest of it, or other developers in other in other areas along the development line. But if we don't start with approving the concept, none of it goes anywhere.
Well, I do agree that if we don't do the preliminary plan, we don't have the answers to the questions that we're asking. So I agree with that.
Absolutely.
All right. Did you have a comment, sir? Please come to the mic and state your name and.
Harry Mead. A couple of points. First, on this particular item, I would think that you'd have to consider this in isolation and not actually take into account the fact that, well, we might get flow serve, we might get because it sounds like the bypass has been built by mites for 30 years. So you kind of have to take the proposal as it is, and because FlowServe may never let it go through. So at that point, you've got 400 houses all coming out on 194. Second point is there any plan for coordination between all the different projects that need to happen with these? Because that seems like that needs to really be taken into account, because again, if you just take the different pieces in isolation, some might work, some might not. I mean, you were talking earlier of how does the other piece of Antrim come through? Right. So I think, I know things are on the master plan, but I've seen Carroll County master plans for 40 years that haven't meant crap, honestly. So I think we need to have a little bit more concrete, like, coordination between some of these things that are going on in order to make sure that we get the direction what we need to.
I kind of agree with you.
Totally agree.
Bill, go ahead.
I think Jim said about Sewell's property, everything has to come together
Yeah.
to make
Yeah,
this
because
town-
I was gonna say,
make it-
that's the other thing.
make it work.
It's like, okay, well, Sewell's doing a traffic thing.
And I'm not picking on
These are
Sewell's
doing-
property, I'm
Oh,
just
yeah,
saying that-
I'm
that's-
just saying, but in general, yeah, you've got Sewell's doing a traffic thing, these guys are doing a traffic thing, these guys are over there are doing a traffic thing. And,
We talked all about
Right.
this back with Meadowbrook and everything. The whole function of it all is, not all of it, but it's coming to the square.
Right.
And that seems to be where we're kind of tied up with the state and with all the other developments or anything that's coming around town. If you want to go other than where you're located, then you got to go through a square.
yep. But, yeah, I mean, back to my initial was, you've gotta get
agree.
take it in isolation of, okay, this may be all we get, so how is that gonna affect everything?
Right.
Right. Thank you, sir. Chris?
I think, Mr. Mead, to your point, that you almost can't take this in isolation. It's like you said, it needs to be coordinated. Daryl and I have talked about having to coordinate the entrance for Garnet Ridge with the exit across the FlowServe property and how those need to line up. If we don't line those up, the state will approve one but never approve the other. So we do need to coordinate, so they can't really be considered in isolation. But I understand what your point about each project is as an individual project, but it has to be considered in terms of its connectivity with the other projects, because all three of these, including the Sewell's Farm, are all connected, and they will all end up eventually being interconnected.
All right, thanks, Chris.
Agreed. But yeah, we kind of need to weigh whether we need to, gonna have the infrastructure plan first, or we're gonna start putting in a bunch of houses first, and then, infrastructure will happen. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Before I look for some type of motion, does the county have anything they would like to add at this point? Not to put you on the spot, just. All right, and I would hate to not include Jay in any comments that he would want to make at this point. He's still available.
I'm still available. Mr. Chairman, do you have me? Yeah, since you asked, Mr. Chairman, we always talk about what your motion should be, and what the staff has said is that the concept, the dream, seems to be okay. It's the execution that might be a problem. And so I know that if you don't like it at all, you can vote no. And if you have no problems, which is not what I heard, you could vote yes. And maybe what you could do is, slice the baby in half here, and you could move to the next step, but note that specific your concerns. And I know some of the members did specifically state their concerns. Make sure that the staff includes those concerns in the minutes, so that there's no concern 6 months from now when you're getting ready to approve a preliminary plan that you're going to say, well, you approved the concept and you knew it didn't connect, or you approved the concept and you didn't have these things addressed. You would say, it's not quite a conditional approval, because we do that a lot, but this is an approval and you've noted your concerns that you want addressed for the preliminary plan. And I'm sure that Mr. Hackett and his crew out there have heard all of those and are going to try their best to address them. So that's what I would suggest.
Thank you very much, Jay.
Thanks, Jay.
Jim, you had a question or a comment?
Just a comment. We've talked a lot about traffic, and I don't have figures in front of me tonight, but for the city council, gosh, it's probably been nearly a year now. We looked at census figures as far as who commutes, for Taneytown residents, who commutes outside of the city. We've looked at SHA numbers for the state roads and where they count the traffic closest to the roundabout, in all the directions coming through town and going towards Westminster and everything. And the conclusion of crunching all those numbers is that the volume of traffic that travels through town on a regular basis has grown disproportionately to the growth of the city. So what I take from that is, even if we don't grow, the traffic coming through here grows. Mm-hmm. That's what has happened for the last 10 years from the previous census. And you can go back and look on the state highway website and look at their annual traffic counts and everything. But when you look at how many people live in the city, how many people commute out of the city every day, it pales in comparison to the number of traffic trips or travel trips through the city. So the traffic is coming, and it will continue to come, I would imagine, whether we grow or not. So it's not just about, having, 141 homes in phase one and, over the next 12 years, 400 more homes. The homes are coming to the area. They're going to be here. People are going to drive through the city regardless. Whether we grow or not, the traffic's going to grow. So we need to be thinking along those lines too, because we can only control what happens within the city. And we're seeing impact from growth around us, in the community around us, be it Littlestown or Hanover or, Emmitsburg or farther west. It used to be traffic coming between the roundabout and the square. The West Baltimore Street leg of that, going towards Emmitsburg, was like significantly lower than the other legs of the intersection, and that's not the case anymore. Now we're seeing a lot more traffic come and go from the west. So it's, and if you think about Taneytown from the square to Memorial Park, what's really there? Where have we grown, that all this traffic is coming from? It's not, it's not 36 houses at Taneytown Crossing, but this traffic's coming from somewhere, and it's a lot more than 36 more cars than it used to be. So traffic is here, it's coming, regardless. So just I'm kind of on my soapbox about that, I guess, but I just want to stress that whether the city grows or not, the traffic grows, so.
Yeah, you're right, there's a lot of PA cars go through that intersection.
True.
Chris?
And I'd like to just follow up on Jim's comments. That really is kind of the point of this, is that this is not we're not looking to just service those 454 houses. And like Jim said, if they're not being built here, they may be built in Emmitsburg or someplace between here and there, and those cars are still going to drive through town. If we are able to take that first step to try to get some of those cars out, and do it in such a way as that we're able to make follow-on steps to get more of those cars out of the square, then we are getting ourselves that much further ahead of the game. We cannot wait for State Highway Administration to do this, because we just simply don't have that kind of time. Our discussions with them, they are willing to work with us, help us cooperate, work with us on the intersection improvements where these developments will meet the state roads. And those are things that they can do without having to go through the whole major highway planning process. But if they have to go through the highway planning process, then this will take a very long time indeed. So we need to take these opportunities as we get them. But as we've said, we have to make sure that we have the check and balance on the adequate facilities at the other end. So before the first shovel goes into the dirt, that we know that we're going to be able to actually do this. So I
Agree with what you're saying. Thank you. All right. Not hearing any more comments, I'll entertain a motion.
move that we approve the concept plan for Mountain Brook Farms, subject to the preliminary plan meeting all adequate facilities requirements.
All right, I missed your thumb, but okay, he made the motion. Is there a second to that motion? I'll second the motion, even though I have a lot of, I don't know, I don't want to say regrets, but I have a lot. Excuse me? Concerns yet, and I guess they'll come out in the preliminary. So I'll make that I'll second that motion, and we'll open it up for more discussion. Any comments from the commission, the staff, or the floor? Yes, please come up forward. State your name and.
Michael Breen with Ward Communities. Is it, I was listening to everything. Is it a reasonable motion to have, to say that all APF needs to be approved or adequate by preliminary plan? Because I don't think it'll unfold that way.
No, but we need to do it before we give final approval on the preliminary.
Yes, sir, I understand that, but the motion, as this gentleman
You're
posed
right.
it,
I agree what you said, and I missed that, yes.
because that was my only concern, because Jim and and Darrell and I have had hours and hours of conversation, and we're betting on Jim and Darrell to get water and sewer as they go along, and we have faith in them. But the day we have preliminary plan approval, we won't have 100% APF. So I just wanted to make that little point. Thank you.
All right.
Is that a fair statement, Jim?
Right. I think, now I'm assuming the preliminary plan is going to be phased as well.
That's right.
So, right, so with that phased approach, we believe we can satisfy each phase as we go along.
All right, thank you much.
So if I understand the motion was made that we meet all adequate public facilities for this approval?
No, sir.
I think it
No,
was for the preliminary plan, but
Preliminary plan,
that's
okay.
kind of
That's
jumping
what
the
I thought.
gun. That's really
Okay.
for the next stage.
Okay. So, and then just to move on a little bit more, so we're not going to come back for approval for each section, right? Is this going to be preliminary approval for each phases? Or are we going to come back and do a final approval for the development?
We have seen it done both ways.
I know, that's why I'm
We have
asking.
seen, I think Meadowbrook did preliminary plan for the entire site. Meads Crossing did it in
Sections.
1A, 1B, 2A, 2B. You know, and this certainly for the final plans, you know, as was presented last month, we're looking at, you know, phase 1, part A, part B, phase 2, you know, A and B also. But typically the stormwater for the entire site is usually worked out for the whole site at the preliminary level. So I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth as to, you know, what the approach is going to be. But that's going to be something we definitely need to work out before we get to that preliminary plan approval stage. And, you know, we do have the ability to approve and, you know, or defer something if we don't meet the APFO. There's language in the code, I don't have it right in front of me, but, you know, if there are plans in place to address an inadequacy, the commission can still grant approval, you know, based on that plan to address the inadequacy. So there's a lot that we're going to have to work out at the preliminary plan stage.
Okay,
So I'm not sure if that really answered the question or not, but
I think so. And does the commission understand that we're voting just based on the concept?
Just on concept.
Okay. Any more questions from the floor? Please state your name.
Barry Gardner. One thing I think you're missing is what VAPCO's trying to do. Out on Kraus Mill Road, they have a public hearing next month. They want to put a storage facility and a truck loading and unloading area. So it depends on what they do, you're going to lose your whole part of your bypass there. And if it does go through, I think you probably need a traffic circle down there with their truck traffic coming in that intersection.
So does the staff know anything about that would help us? Or would that be picked up during the traffic study? If VAPCO, how far is VAPCO along with the county on what they're requesting?
Public hearing is scheduled for next month.
It's the conditional use hearing before the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Okay. Okay.
so, and EVAPCO, well, in the city portion of EVAPCO is later on our agenda, but the property EVAPCO acquired, of course, on the other side, around Cross Mill Road, is outside of the city. So we certainly have spoken with folks in Carroll County Planning and Development Review to make sure that they look at things holistically for that county parcel. We've made them aware of what's going on at Mountain Brook property, the concept that has been shared with us, and the idea of coordinating all of this in hopes of that ultimate completion of the entire bypass. So the county development folks are also aware of what's going on here in the city in Mountain Brook, and where basically making sure that any improvements are considering the road as a whole. So,
Okay.
and we know, we've also had conversations with EVAPCO regarding the property that they purchased, and there were initially some plans to tie development of that property into the headquarters expansion that's on your agenda a little bit later. But they've, reworked how they're going to approach that now, and taken that new property off the table for the project that's in the city. But as I said, the county is aware of what's going on with Mountain Brook Farms and the need to coordinate all the road-related issues.
Okay, thanks. All right, I'm going to call for the vote. And the motion was for, basically for concept approval of Mountain Brook as presented. And I'd like to do a hand vote. Bill? That's a yes for Bill.
1,
Brad, yes. Dan?
I'm okay with moving forward with the preliminary planning.
Okay. Chris?
For the,
Did I miss something there?
no, that's fine.
Okay. And myself, so it's unanimous. Thank you, guys. Thank you, fellas. Thank you. We'll be seeing you in the near future. Did you guys all come in one vehicle to save on the traffic? All right. Almost feel like we need a recess.
Or a beer.
Canny View, minor subdivision. Daryl, I do need a drink.
So Marty, are you gonna help with this?
Yes.
Okay. So the old Coots, property there at, Roberts Mill and Bumgarner, a lot's been subdivided off. And, it's, gonna be 2 lots. So, there's an exhibit drawing that you all were given. We're not talking about the setbacks yet, because we're still working on that, but the fact it's gonna be 2 lots.
Patrick, you have anything you want to add to what's said already?
Marty Hackett again, CLSI. It's the introduction of the project tonight. We, and like Darrell said, we have to work out some details. But the property, obviously, we can cut it into 2 lots and meet the R75 zoning requirements. And just basically here to introduce to go ahead and move forward with the project.
Okay. Now, and that lot's large enough for 2
Yes, sir.
properties. And I noticed the drawing says there's 15 feet from Baumgardner Avenue. How does that fit into our ordinance?
Still working on the setbacks, Jim. The, R7500, and Jay and I were talking about this today. R7500 requires, in our code, it says one front yard. Okay? We know that in other cases, the R7500 or R10000 is 35 feet. So there is a 35-foot setback on both of these lots. The side we have to work on, because the R75 currently in our code says 1 yard. Not like 2, like it says in 10,000.
Well, if we stay with the 15-foot setback on the Baumgardner side, that's going to place that not consistent with the houses that's already along Baumgardner Road, which there's only a few, because they have a setback of over 15 feet. So how is that going to fit into the surrounding areas?
So, yeah, so again, we're not talking about the setbacks tonight, only because we're still working that, Jim.
If we give approval, and we're not doing approval night, this is just a presentation.
Yeah, information.
But once we give
about 2 lots.
approval for the subdivision, it will not come back to us again when they start putting 2 houses there, right? Because that'd be up to you right? We won't see this again. Once we give approval for the subdivision, it does not come back to us. Am I right, Jay?
Yeah, yes, Mr. Chairman. Let me expand a little bit more. There's some questions about the zoning because, as you know, we always deal with the fact that on your corner lot, you have 2 front yards. That's what we've always heard, right? But as Daryl was saying, the language in this code is a little confusing because it says an adjacent street doesn't have to have, only one of them has to have a front yard. So what we wanted to do was get this project in front of you, at least to show you what the minor subdivision would look like. But if we don't work out the zoning situation, it's not going to be able to be approved as it is. And the way the zoning situation gets worked out is either we do our research and find out it's not a problem at all, or that the applicant needs to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals to get a variance. And we understand how that is. So the variance request would come back to you for comments about just giving this variance. And then it would come back to you again for approval for this minor subdivision, if that makes sense. So it's going to come back to you regardless, but we need to find out about this zoning, and we can't really do that until we introduce it to you to see what you all think.
Jim, you had to,
I think the issue with regard to the setbacks is really that, you know, by incorporating that 35-foot equivalent front yard along the Baumgartner side, it just drastically scales back the buildable area on the lot. You know, and that makes it harder to develop, you know, makes it less appealing to someone. And as Daryl and Jay mentioned, the language for R7500 says, on every corner lot, there shall be provided along one of the adjacent streets a front yard equal in depth to the required front yard of similar structures within the district. Now, typically, that would mean 35 feet by today's code. When that area was developed, I believe R75 had a 25-foot setback. So the 15 shown here may be a little bit modest compared to what's built around it, but 35 feet really shrinks the buildable area on the lot. And we need to come to some agreement on that, you know, to make this move forward. Just for informational purposes, the other zoning districts, that language is on every corner lot, there shall be provided along each of the adjacent streets. So R75 says one of the adjacent streets, but if they only wanted one front yard, why would they even put that sentence in? So it appears, you know, that the intent was to recognize the equivalent front yard on the side, but the wording is confusing. So we're working on that.
all right.
And if you ride through there, Chairman, if you go up to right beside Mr. Abbott's home,
Yes.
you see how that corner lot is?
Yes.
It's more like this, but with a bigger front yard. So Abbott's not a corner, but I think it's Aaron was the next house.
Right.
And you have the houses across from the old Duple house, along the straightaway coming straight out of George Naylor's house. Those houses have like 15-foot front yards. So that area's a little different. I don't know why, but, you know, call it late 50s, early 60s maybe. But maybe the zoning wasn't the way it is today.
Okay, so for this evening's, what are you looking for? You looking at a consensus of us, or what are you?
It's just the introduction.
Presentation.
Just a presentation.
So the time you come back, we'll have all the details worked out on the wording,
Yeah.
and then we can move forward. All right. Chris?
Do I understand that this will have to go to the BZA first before it'll come back to us?
No, not as the next step. Am I right, Jay? The next step is still
That's right.
come back to us.
It may not go to the BZA at all.
Correct.
So we don't know that yet.
Depends on the language and what they want to do as far as the side setback and what size building they want to put in there.
So,
Correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
so
Did that
Jay,
answer your question, Chris? Okay, good.
process-wise, and Jay, correct me if I'm wrong here, this theoretically could be approved with the 35-foot setback along Baumgartner, if that's the way we, you know, decide the code intends, in which case the subdivision could be approved, and after it's approved and that lot exists, they could seek a variance for that setback through the Board of Zoning Appeals. But sequence-wise, it would get subdivided, and then they would reduce the setback.
Right. It's either that, I mean, it's going to be done all at the same time because something's going to be conditioned on the other.
Okay.
So,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So you guys think about this when it comes back in a month, probably. All right. Next item, Evapco third amended site plan, seeking concept site plan approval. Before we get too far into this, where are we at with approval on Evapco? Did we approve a concept plan on the original, or we didn't because it was just a presentation?
That was the presentation, correct.
Like just starting new?
We're asking for concept site plan approval.
For what was shown to you a couple months ago.
Yeah.
In May.
It's on the whole project then, right? The
Just-
building,
Just on the office expansion. It is-
on the
yeah.
office expansion. All right. I think the only issue we had, and I don't think that really was an issue, was the building height, right?
And, Mr. Chairman, yeah, the building has since been redesigned. The building height now will only be 44 feet. It'll be below the 50 feet.
Chairman, they were concept site plan presentation on May 22nd.
Yeah, it's on here somewhere.
Yeah, and then after that, there was a letter written by, for an appeal, for a variance for the building height, and that was withdrawn. So now we're back to what is real. So go, sir, I'm sorry.
Could you repeat that last comment? I'm sorry, I didn't
The request for the building height variance was withdrawn.
withdraw. Okay.
And my understanding is there have been some minor changes to the site plan since that original concept plan was presented. The one entrance was removed.
Correct.
But
Okay.
the footprint stays the same, right?
Footprint of the building is generally in the same, exactly the same. The entrance that we were originally proposing close to 194, we've off of Allendale, that's been removed.
And then the parking was the other issue, wasn't it?
The parking, so this building expansion results in a net loss of 49 parking spaces. Avapco is working right now on their existing facility to repurpose some of their yard space to provide that additional parking. And they're also looking at some off-site, adjacent off-site properties to expand parking as well.
Okay. So, any comments from the commission?
Nope.
There again, we're looking for concept approval. Any comments from the floor? All right, then I'll entertain a motion. You're here.
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and I'll make a motion that we approve this concept plan for the amendment site plan for Vapco.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second by Bill. Brad made the motion, Bill seconded. Open for further discussion. Comments from the floor? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Got your thumb. Thank you. Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep. Ordinance and agreements. Daryl, your report.
Okay. So it's really wild to go out to the Mountain Brook site with the MDE and the gentleman you saw earlier. I need to work out. It was pretty difficult, right, Chris?
That was some stomping through some high grass.
But it was fascinating that what I was thinking in my mind about the water crossing and all that is a lot different than when you see it live. But that was pretty neat. So, and time will tell what that's all going to look like, and they're presented to us.
Have you driven back Mountain Brook all the way back to the end?
Not always.
I think it feels like it's about 2 miles back there.
It's
a ways.
Yeah.
Especially when the corn is all the way up like it is.
Right.
Really back there.
Yeah. So the next trip will hopefully be when the corn's down. I think that's,
Well, when I was back there at the house, I couldn't get my bearings. I didn't know how close I was to 140.
Yeah.
Because so actually, can you recall how close you are to 140 from where the house?
power line's pretty close.
Yes, I saw the power line.
Just past the pond.
Well, that
Back
was
a
on,
ways.
yeah, the house
past
is on
pond.
back past that, yeah.
Yeah. So, you talking about the large house on the right-hand side, it just as you come, you have the barn that's down. Yeah.
Yeah,
Check out, did you see how nice the shape of that mortar was in that house?
yes.
It's better than mine, built in 1939.
Yeah, that's why I
Little
thought maybe they
jealous.
use something like that, convert to a clubhouse or something like that. All right, sorry, go ahead.
Okay. So we're signing up for the MPCA training. The goal is to get rooms for the night before. And then we'll talk after this training. The first half of the day is really the, whatever training, whether it be the Open Meetings Act or the new commissioner training. So maybe if the drive is a lot less, maybe that first day we, leave at 7 o'clock in the morning or whatever, get down there by lunchtime or before noon. So we'll play that one by ear, but the venue may change as to where we're staying, just because, it may make good sense to do that. Okay?
We're okay with that, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But the training seems awesome.
Yes.
And other than Mr. Chairman, I don't have anything. Project 180, we were talking about the conditional approval. That letter hasn't come through yet, but I'm sure that CDM Smith will move things along pretty quick.
Okay, that was, we gave a 60-day
Yes.
on that,
Yep.
so that'd be next month.
I got a timer in my office.
Do you? Okay.
But other than that, gentlemen, I do not have anything.
All righty. Moving on.
Oh, sir, just Jim, Chairman. One more thing. The machine for Duffy Box is up. I'd like to try to get over to see that. Remember, that building was built for one machine. I can't imagine what it does. Yeah, and they're testing it now. So
I'd like to have a walk through that.
that'd be nice. I'll see what I can arrange.
Darrell, what's going on with the hardware store? I got people asking me about it.
They've been quiet. Mr. Lapp has been quiet. I haven't heard anything to say it's not going to happen, but I haven't heard anything either way.
Okay.
Okay, and what about across, on the other side of Antrim?
Well, Feeser South?
Yeah.
The distillery?
Distillery.
Haven't heard from them either. I've just been quiet.
Okay. It was good for us to hear about it before we get asked.
All right, yeah, I understand.
All righty. Construction phases, are you whittling down on those?
Let's see.
So it seems like a lot of good progress going on out of Bollinger Park.
If you haven't been out Bollinger Park,
It's worth the trip.
yeah, it is. If you haven't been out, if you didn't go out there beforehand, ask Lorraine, I'm sure she has a couple of pictures. Just see how dense the woods were, and then all that movement since then. We're not getting any complaints out of the neighbors. So Hobbs is doing that work and is doing it very well. They're very meticulous people, company rather.
So
She,
maybe on a hot day, we can use the pool.
sure, sure. It's a big one.
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
She's heard nothing, just that one out of the blue email, like, hey, let's get this, so dark again.
Okay.
The Evapco, we're looking at that. The tannering barn, we just had conversation by email late last week and today, in speaking with the city manager. We want to get these things cleared off, and I know you guys want to as well. There's a stormwater management part of Tannery Barn that needs to be corrected because that job kept getting bigger and bigger. So the assortment of plants to do the stormwater management has been selected, and CDM Smith and that architect for the Tannery Barn will hopefully be getting this worked out pretty soon. I think it's just that simple.
Okay. Good. All right.
Duffy Addition, we talked about that. I have Meads, we're not gonna accept those roads until probably next spring. And we got George's of New York. I have no information for you on that at this point. That's all I have.
All right.
Thanks, Darrell.
Let's go into our legal update.
Mr. Chairman, I have a few things. I think the screen's going to start right now. There we go. First, I know we glossed over this when Darrell talked about Recovery 180, And I know we all talked about this before, but Daryl and his team and the staff really need to be congratulated. I saw some correspondence from the State Highway, which talked about the dedication of the area that State Highway is going to take for, I call it an XL decel lane, but it might not be that, and the triangle at the end of the property. So, you know, we gloss over this, but that has been a major strategic barrier to fixing that intersection for years and years and years. So we really have benefited, the city has benefited by the development of that property, and Daryl has been on that. So I wanted you to know those things. You asked a question about the distillery, and I have been in conversation with it's not the property owner, I guess it would be the applicant, the distillery people. I've been in conversations with their attorney, and we've been going back and forth. The issue that we have in general is that the cost of connecting the infrastructure, the water and the sewer, is pretty extreme for that parcel because there's a stream crossing on one side, and that makes it difficult and limits the avenues of approach for that. So when we last left it, the engineers have had meetings, we've had meetings, Jim and Daryl and the staff have had meetings, but it's now in the attorney's court to talk about how the city can be of assistance. That's how it was left, is the city might have to be of assistance. And we've kind of left it to them to get out to us. So that parcel, no matter what you put on it, is difficult because it's going to need the same things, water and sewer and sidewalk access, and it's the hardest parcel to get to out there. So that's where that is. And then the last issue is regarding the bypass. The council has directed that I prepare a letter where the city is going to formally ask the county to transfer that piece of property that we acquired last year. You remember we bought a piece of the Syrian farm that's in the bypass area. We bought it, but it was attached to a county parcel that's next to it. So we bought it, but we don't own it. So we'd like the county to transfer the entire parcel, what we bought plus what they have, to us, so that we could now own that piece of the right of way. And while I was working through that with one of my other clients, and then another one of my clients came forward and was dealing with the same type of issue, and their consultant was the same consultant that provided a study for the county several years ago on the transportation areas and the bypass corridor. And so he forwarded it to me, and you've probably already seen it, but there's only like 3 or 4 pages applicable to us. I'm going to get it to Daryl, and he can email it to all of you, and you might be interested to see what they have. The interesting part was the consulting firm, Mead and Hunt. They do an excellent job, and it might be something the city would want to consider. If we're really serious about developing a bypass, we may have to hire some experts that can kind of figure that out. We've tried to do everything ourselves, and this might be something beyond that. So at least I'd send you the report, and you can check it out yourself. That's what I have.
All right. Thank you very much. Any comments from anyone? All right.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you, Jay. Tiffany. Sorry if I put you on the spot back there.
Oh, that's absolutely fine. It was fine. Thank you. We don't have much to update, anything new really. We just, the triennial update's still in the hands of to the water sewer master plan, still in the hands of Maryland Department of the Environment. We're still working on the transportation master plan and still working through the economic development and land use study with the consultants, but nothing solid as far as dates or presentations just yet. But if you have any questions about any of it.
Any question?
Tiffany, are there any upcoming meetings on the transportation plan?
Nothing just yet. Nothing set on the agendas yet.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks.
Old business? New business? Bill, you have anything?
Do not.
Dan?
Nothing.
Anyone from the floor have any comments? Okay, I guess, looks like our next, I'm sorry. Please come to the mic and mention, and give us your name and.
I'm Valerie Sharp, and I don't know if I missed something. I live across the street from that development that they're going to be putting in.
Meadowbrook?
No.
Mountain?
No, on
Bumgarner?
Taney Heights.
Tony Heights and Bumgarner?
Yes. Is there going to be another meeting about this?
Yes,
So.
maybe
it'll be-
more than one.
Okay, then I will ask my questions then, because I sent my questions to the developer twice and did not get a response, and I thought that was all I'm asking is for, if they have like a little site plan, I need to see what's going up across the street from me.
Right now is just a subdivision. I
It's,
mean,
right.
one big
And
lot made into two.
Yeah, I know, I understand that.
You can see that before you leave tonight if
Yeah.
you like. We've got copies of it right here, sure.
Thank you, thank you.
Yep, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, I'd like to thank the commission for the support and of our meeting this evening. I think we came across with a lot of things that's on everyone's mind. And I'm still hung up on 454 homes and a dead end. So I'm up.
With you.
But let's move forward and see what happens between now and the next stage. So I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Made by Brad, second by Bill. All in favor? Aye. Carried. Got the thumb. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you all.
Yep.